Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the And Both podcast. My guest is Jennifer Westphahl, the founder of Be.Retreats. It is a really cool spin out of her own experience in the retreat space, attending one and deciding to offer a couple of different ones for her community. And so I just love the story, love the idea that, go and have an experience and think, how can I turn around and make this an offering for other people? So I will let her intro and tell you all about it. But it's very, very cool to hear a lot of different people who have these really positive experiences. And instead of saying like, oh, I've checked the box and this is great, or I'm going to do this, they're turning around and trying to make it an accessible offering for other people that may be looking for that. So without further ado, here's Jennifer. Welcome to And Both, a podcast about what it really looks like to put yourself on the list while raising kids and doing all the other things life asks of you. I'm your host, Ashley Blackington, and on this show, you'll hear conversations with moms who are figuring it out in their own ways, plus a few solo episodes from me from time to time. It's not about having all the answers, it's about sharing stories, learning from each other, and knowing we don't have to choose between either or when we're living in the middle of and both. Let's get into today's episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of the And Both podcast. My guest today is Jennifer Westphahl. Welcome to the show. Let's start there. I always just get so excited to get into it that I forget to stop and say welcome. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Ashley. Good to be here.
It's great to be here. I love what you do and I want to talk all about it because I think it's incredibly necessary. But first of all, before we dive into what you do, will you let everybody know about you, a little bit about you, whatever you want them to know?
Yeah, of course. So I own Be.Retreats, where I guide people through experiences of rest, intention, stillness, and connection, and help them live the life they were meant to live, the life that they want to live, a more authentic life. The journey to where I am now in that business has been about 2.5 years and has been very unexpected and winding, and we can talk about that. I also do some marketing and communications work to pay the bills because this work does not yet pay any bills. In fact, it's in the red for the second year in a row. I have 3 children. They are 15, 18, and 21. So one's still at home and 2 off at college in the same place, which is amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I do a lot of volunteer work and have a lot of hobbies now that my kids are old enough that I can do that, which is wonderful. Yeah, I think that's good for an introduction.
I love it. I love that you also pointed out that you have hobbies now that your kids are older, because I feel like there's such a push on you were pregnant and now you've had this child and this kid is still squishy and floppy, but what about you and what are your hobbies?
Yeah.
It's oh my God, give me a minute.
Yeah. I definitely did have hobbies even when the kids were little, but not as many or as much time devoted to them as I do now. So I do think it's important to have something for you even when the kids are little, but let's be realistic about that. Maybe you have one hobby and you get to do it once a month. I was just looking back at a bunch of old blog posts that I wrote. So I was really big into the blogging world when that was shiny and new and my kids were little. And I wrote one, I think it was 2010. So my kids were 1, 4, and 6. And it was like a New Year's resolution kind of thing. And I had this list of 15 goals for the year. And it was each goal was probably unattainable with 3 little kids. And I had 15 of them. It was totally ridiculous. Maybe now I could accomplish those 15 goals. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I just look back and think oh man, I was trying so hard to do so many things and be all the things. And I put so much pressure on myself that was so unnecessary.
Yeah. I don't know if I can't remember if I've told this on the story on the show before, but when my oldest, I came home from the hospital with her and I had this Post-it that was on the table in my kitchen. And it was this list of things that I was going to get done while she was asleep.
Right.
Right? Anyone who has had a child is already laughing because that 2 weeks went by and not one single thing on that list was checked off. I could barely feed myself. I didn't know what day it was. I was upside down and sideways, but I thought if I just organized my way into this, that it was going to happen. And
Right.
I get it. You want to, but you don't know. Just be kind to yourself. You're
Yeah.
your whole thing everything just went on its head. And that's
Right.
nutty.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Be.Retreats because I want to hear all about it because I love
Yeah.
it. Tell me more.
Well, where to begin? Maybe I'll start with kind of the journey, how I got here.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely see retreat work as a calling, and it's something, like I said, it's not making any money. It's not like, oh, this great business idea, it's something that I really feel called to do, and it's necessary, like you said in the opening. Like, everyone I talk to says, oh man, we need that in this world today, especially the focus that I have around rest and intention and stillness and connection, all things that I think the busy technology driven world has kind of taken away from us. So looking back, I can see this calling building through my whole life, but I really became aware of it in March of 2023, so 2.5 years ago. My cousin and I organized a women's weekend getaway at a cabin. We just invited people that both of us knew, but none of them knew each other. And that was the goal. It was like a bunch of strangers, just you hang out, get to know each other, relax, have some fun. And it was super nice, but I felt like it needed a little more structure. There was like a lot of awkwardness at the beginning, looking at each other. So what do we do? Well, there was no like way to guide ourselves into getting to know these other people. And also scheduling it was incredibly difficult. We just had to pick a date and rent the place and hope people could come. We invited like 40 some people, probably 30 some of them said that they would really love to go, but we're busy that weekend. So we ended up with, I think, 5 or so. And so the whole weekend I was thinking, oh man, I wish I had a place like this that I could run these all the time and people could just sign up. They wouldn't have to get a whole group together. They could sign up by themselves and just come and have a women's weekend with a bunch of strangers. And at first, it was like, oh yeah, wouldn't that be nice, right? Yeah, but crazy idea. I have no background in hospitality or running a facility. Like, that's not attainable. But I just literally would not go away. Everywhere I turned, I'd say, oh, I could use that for my whatever this thing is. I didn't even have words for it at the time. Like, oh, that's an idea. Oh, we could do that. Or I'd be sitting in silent prayer, and it was just like the ideas were just flooding through my head. And I was like, I think I'm supposed to be doing something with this, but what is this? So I did a bunch of research, talked to a bunch of people, kept thinking about it, kept praying about it. And it kind of turned into, well, why don't you learn how to facilitate retreats? Like, this is kind of close to a retreat center, and then just see where that goes. So I decided to commit to taking that first step of just learning what that's about. And then I've been just taking whatever the next step is ever since. So I've purposely not made super strict like business plans or 5-year visions or things like that, because I'm really just trying to see where this journey takes me.
That's cool. So how often are you hosting the retreats? What does
Yeah.
that part of it look like?
So my first official retreat with the business name and business launch and everything was a year ago, I think almost this week, actually. And so that one was sort of a one-off to see how it went. It was a weekend long one. And then I did a couple of day long or half day ones in January. And between those, I kind of got a feel for what was working and what wasn't. And then I suddenly had this epiphany moment. Like, I almost felt like I could see the words written in front of me: rest, intention, stillness, and connection. Those hadn't been a thing up until then. My first retreat was about rest, and my second one was about intention, but I wasn't like building a platform per se. Those were just like topics that were of interest to me. But this idea of rest, intention, stillness, and connection, and the fact that they spell out the word risk, and you have to take risks to be yourself just hit me in the middle of a workout session, actually, in February this year. So then I spent a few months kind of figuring out, what does that look like? What does that mean? And then this summer, I would say I relaunched the business. So I relaunched with events starting in September so that I had a little couple months of lead time to market them. So since September now, I've been doing 3 events per month. One is just an hour long, one is 3 hours, and then one is either a full day or an overnight. So I have that going on for September, October, November. I'm going to take a break for December since it's the holidays and, people are busy with stuff. And then I'm hoping to come back in January with sort of that same cadence of a short, medium, and long event each month.
I really like that you talk about it's not, I think easily these days when you go online and you look at something, it's easy to feel like somebody had an idea. They Googled a few things, they threw a social media page up, and now all of a sudden they've got people just throwing credit cards at them and cash, right? It's really easy to make everything look like, what is it, the 10 years to an overnight success
right
quote? It's really easy to only focus in on that piece. You can take the picture 2 years ago when you launch, but then you don't post it for 2 years while you're, sort of figuring all those pieces out in the background. So I always think it's really great when people talk about the fact that it does not just happen. You don't just wish it into the world and now it's here. And it's great. It's well, it's not, because you have to do all of those pieces and you have to figure it out. Like you said, your background is not in hospitality. It's how much the learning to get to the base, to get to the next level, to get to the next level. I think that's really important to highlight in this instance, especially.
Yeah, for sure. And it can be discouraging because you do see people that seemingly just come up with this idea and it takes off. And then you're like, well, why isn't my idea taking off like that? So I have to be careful not to get myself into that comparison trap. And I don't know their backstory, right? It might, like you said, it might seem like this just popped up, but maybe they've been thinking about it for 20 years, or maybe they hadn't, but all these other experiences in their life added up to it. So yeah, you don't know what is the backstory to these people's success.
Yeah, it's definitely I like the more real sort of, this is what it is piece to it. Is there, for you, in terms of hosting, do you have a preference for retreat length of the ones that you offer?
Good question. No, I think they each have a different vibe and they serve a different purpose. And so I think for that reason, I like them all. The ones that I do that are 3 hours long, I call campfire connections, and we just sit around a campfire, and the whole point is just to build connections between people. It's super low key. We do an adult show and tell, which has been really fun, and we have a question of the month that each person answers somewhat in depth, and from there it just goes into spontaneous conversation until when it's time for it to come to a close. Then I have a short closing question, and we play a song. And so those are really fun because they're a little more organic. It doesn't take a ton of curriculum building and activities and planning on my end, and it's still really rewarding. But the longer ones that do take more work and planning, I think probably have a little more lasting impact on people. So that's also really satisfying. I love when people come back weeks or months after a retreat and tell me something that has changed in their life because of whatever happened on the retreat. That's the ultimate success for me.
Yeah. Where do you host the retreats? Are they all in the same space?
No, they're not. That would be my goal eventually. I would love to own my own space and do my own retreats, but also have other people coming in and doing their things and, just using it for kind of community building and things. But currently I have really 4 main locations. So the one that's just an hour long thing every month is on Zoom. I am looking to expand that to some in-person places. I've actually pitched it just recently to our local library and community education to see if I can offer that through them. And that's a contemplative writing circle. So we spend an hour starting out with silence and then reflecting on a piece of writing, a poem or an essay or something, and doing our own writing based on that, and then come back and share about it. And then the campfire connections, those are done just locally, like at a park or someplace that's got a nice fire pit. And then the day-long ones, I do have a set place. It does not have overnight accommodations, but it's a private retreat center that's membership based, and it's like 20 miles from my house. And then the overnight ones have moved around. So I've had one at a camp, one at a retreat center. I'm looking at a friend's cabin for the next one. So we're kind of feeling out what works for that one. And I'm trying to move it around location wise. So it's accessible to more people, people who maybe don't want to go 2 hours away, but they'll go to this place that's 40 minutes away. So I'm kind of testing out places for those bigger ones.
Yeah, I feel like you're kind of up against especially, when you're talking about like getting away and being still and all that stuff, like you're up against people. Like I know that I've looked at retreats before and been like, it's going to take me like nearly a day to get there between leaving to go to fly to, it's like there's so much of a lift the farther you go.
Yeah.
And so how do you get people that are in the space to stop and be to attend? And then also how do you grow? Like I feel like that's a conundrum all on its own. It's like getting here and then growing.
Yeah. And my audience is really local. I'm not trying to attract people who are going to fly in for these. I mean, maybe someday down the road, but there's plenty of people here locally that could use a retreat. And so I've been trying to keep them within a reasonable driving distance that, like you said, it doesn't feel like, oh, I took a whole day to get here and then the thing's only 2 days and then it takes a whole day to get back. So they've all been within a couple of hours drive of, I live in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. So they've all been, within a couple hours of the main population center here.
That's cool. And so your kids, now that they're older, how does that, I mean, like you said at the beginning, like it gives you much more time for hobbies and things like that. Like, do you find that the people that come to the retreats, are they in that stage where like their kids are older? So now they're like, I can see that I have space to do this. Or do you get the people who are like, oh my gosh, I just need a day?
Yeah, it's a mix. I would say for the majority are probably people who have kids who are teenagers to adults or no kids at all. And I don't know if that's because of the content of the retreats or because they're my peers and that's who I know and that's who's coming, or because they have the time, or a combination of the three. But I have had some people who have younger kids. I had my very first retreat, someone came, she was pregnant with her second child, and it was an intention setting retreat. And so she really wanted to set some intention around what does her life look like now that she's going to have 2 kids. And I did one retreat that was a mother-daughter retreat. It was 3 women who have kids like elementary school age, and then their moms, who of course their kids are all grown and they're all grandmas. That was actually really cool to that was also an intention setting retreat. And it was cool to see the different things that mattered to the 2 different age groups. And so they had sometimes together and then sometime separately by age group where they could discuss life. And that was super cool and something I would love to do again.
Yeah. So how do you balance the retreat planning? Well, I hate the word balance, although it just rolls off the tongue so easily.
I know.
Well, how do you manage your time and things like that alongside planning the retreat, research and learning and then like you said, that's not your regular main gig. Like how do you make all that come together?
It's super hard and I'm not sure I'm doing it super well. One thing that I did do I can't remember when it was. Let's see. Oh, I think it was a year ago. Yeah, I did this right before my first weekend retreat. So one thing I did starting last fall was look at my time, how many hours do I have in a day? What kind of percentage of the day do I want to give to certain things based on like what I was already doing, what I wanted to be doing, etc. And then how do I kind of bucket those into my calendar so I'm not trying to do all the things all at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
So I've set a schedule where I work for my communications clients 2 full days a week and 2 half days a week. And they're fairly good about following that schedule. Not always. I sometimes have to remind them, okay, but I don't work Fridays, so I can't attend this meeting. So that leaves so Friday and the other 2 half days are for building my business, whether that's research or planning the curriculum, reading books. I've read so many books, or doing marketing work towards the retreats, or, going out and buying the supplies I need, etc. And then that leaves, nights and weekends for family things generally, although of course I do have some retreats running on weekends. So I just try to not be gone every weekend,
Yeah.
while I still have one kid at home, although it is definitely easier with only one instead of two or three that have weekend activities. So half the time I don't think she even notices when I'm gone. you know, she's almost 16. She's like in her own world. But
She'll be driving.
yes, she's practicing. Yeah.
That's got to be strange. I can't imagine. Like my youngest is 5, and I can't imagine my oldest driving. She's 12, let alone my youngest. And then this notion of like they just get bigger, and then they they drive, and then they're
Yeah.
just never home.
Right. And then they go to college and they don't talk to you for 3 weeks straight.
It's such a foreign concept.
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my head around it.
Yeah. I have a boy and a girl in college, and it's very interesting. I think it's partly the fact that they're boy girl, but also partly their personalities. Like my daughter will call me or FaceTime me about nothing, and we'll talk for an hour. And sometimes I'm like, mouth, like half listening while I'm doing something else. Like, what are we even talking about right now? And my son, like, I'll go weeks without hearing from him, and then he'll text me, how do I mail a package to my dorm room? What's my address? Like, hi, good to hear from you too. Like,
Right?
here's your address. Okay, thanks. Like, so how's life?
Right? And other follow-up questions. Good to
Yes.
see you're alive.
Right.
Great to know. You haven't run out of laundry. Like, it's good.
Yeah. I will say, even though I'm kind of glad I didn't have social media when I was in college, it is nice, like, at least I can see a little glimpses of what they're up to, or like you said, yeah, you're alive. So like I can see on their Instagram stories little fun things that they're doing, which is cool.
Do you follow so are you connected with your kids online? I am fascinated by that as well. This is like we're doing the elephant walk right now because my oldest has a phone, but there's no social media or internet
Right.
access on her phone. That's not going to be forever, unfortunately.
Right.
I mean, my goal is to never have social media ever again, but unfortunately, it's a necessary evil of so many parts of my life and business.
Yep.
But like, do your kids ever forget that you follow them on social media?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I don't feel like I've ever seen anything that I went like, oh, I don't think I was supposed to see that. But they also, very well could have other accounts, or you can, post things where you can also post things where you're like, hide it from a certain person. Whether they do that or not, I have no idea. And really, if they do, that's fine. Like, I don't need to know. Like I said, I didn't have social media at all when I was in college. Like, my parents had no clue what I was doing, probably. So I do think, they're adults. They deserve some privacy. So whatever they share publicly and I get to see, that's great. It's great to have a peek into their life, but if there's things they keep to themselves, that's okay too.
Yeah, I think I mean, even if like, so you said your oldest is 21, like
Yeah.
even in their lifetime, like had they gone to college 21 years ago
Right.
versus like, I'm trying to think It's 2025. I graduated from college in 2006. I graduated from undergrad in 2006. And there was no social media. There was
Right.
there was no iPhone.
Right.
And I think now, my kids are very young and they've just received the Target catalog and the Amazon catalog in the mail. And they're like, Mom, we would all like to have Apple Watches for Christmas. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yes.
I love that dream for you.
Yeah, you're like, sure.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I would love $1 million.
yeah, I'm
That's great.
let's talk about the things I would like. I'd like new slippers. And they're
Yeah.
like, wow, that's so boring. And I'm like, it's not for Apple Watches, that's for sure.
Yeah. When my oldest started college and, was living on her own, her Christmas wish list changed dramatically. Like, I remember she asked for a vacuum cleaner, a humidifier. I forget what else. There was a couple other like super practical items, and she was like, well, I guess this is what an adult Christmas list looks like. She's
You're
like, these aren't super exciting, but then I won't have to spend my money on them, and then I can spend my money on doing fun things. So,
yeah, like slippers aren't exotic when you have an electricity bill.
Yeah.
And a phone bill and a water bill. And it's
Right.
like, oh my God. Yeah, that cracks me up. I had when my husband went to college, his dad was a great cook, and he got one of those turkey roasters, the like black and white speckled ones.
Yeah.
And put like tongs and like it was sort of like a starter kitchen.
Right.
In a turkey roaster thing, and gave that to him when he went to college. And I remember thinking like, that's actually a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Because you don't by the time you get to that point, you don't necessarily want, you always want all the things, but you start to have that different lens of like, okay, what is practical and what is necessary and what's important.
Right. What's going to make my life better, easier.
Today's episode is brought to you by Dovetail, the app that's changing the way families navigate caregiving. If you're juggling your kids' schedules, checking in on your parents, and trying to manage your own needs, Dovetail is made for you. I built Dovetail as a clinician and caregiver who saw firsthand how overwhelming this role can be and how much lighter it feels when the care is shared. Download Dovetail now on iOS, Google Play, coming soon. So for you, when you have I want to say it's I guess it's a two-part question, but when you have people come in, do you notice themes around the people that are coming to the retreats? Do you have my kids just left for college and now I need to focus on this, this, and this? Or is it, this time of year or whatever, given your fall schedule?
Yeah, I would say it varies, and some of that depends on how people found the retreat. So, for example, I had one that I did for a friend at her house, and she invited all the people. So they were all her peers, and they were all people who were about to become empty nesters or who had just become empty nesters, just because that's the age that my friend is. And so there was a lot of discussion about that at that retreat, about identity that I didn't expect. People who said, I never thought I would be the person who didn't know who she was anymore when my kids left, but I am, and now I don't know what to do. So there was a lot of discussion at that one about that stuff. My most recent retreat was about rest, why we rest, the different kinds of rest. And we ended up on this long, somewhat tangential conversation about menopause. Everybody at that retreat was between 45 and 58, probably. So we had people at just the beginning stage of it's coming and people who were well into it and were giving advice. I honestly don't even know how we got there from. It came through the prompts and the quotes about rest, and it just sort of organically grew into that. I guess it was something, that was making one person feel particularly unrested. So it just became this conversation about really sharing each other's experiences and, what has worked for you and what was a struggle and so forth. That was really pretty neat to see. Yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of a seasonal theme. I always do intention setting in January as an alternative to setting New Year's resolutions. So,
Yay.
yeah. So that one definitely has often more of sort of a forward-looking theme and sort of who do I want to be and how do I want to live my life in sort of a conceptual way. And that's the goal, is that it's not like I'm gonna run a marathon this year, or I'm gonna read 72 books. It's like I'm going to be kind to myself, or I'm going to
Hmm.
look for joy, or I'm gonna go with the flow. It's more of those kind of conceptual things that can be lived in the day-to-day moment instead of a concrete goal that I'm building steps towards. I mean, there can be some relation between those two, but we really try to get into that more feeling. Who do I want to be? How do I want to feel in the day to day? So that one probably tracks the widest range of people, because I think that's something everyone needs, no matter what
Yeah.
stage you're in or how old you are or whatever.
I like what you said about like, the people, the empty nester one, about people not even knowing who they are or what they like or
Yeah.
all of that stuff. And I feel like that is something that happens more than once,
Yeah.
especially
In your Throughout your
moms.
life. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important to sort of spend a minute on, because I think when I was sending my kids into school, like into kindergarten, a lot of people that I knew at the time, they had two kids, and so when my second was going into school, their last was going into school.
Hmm.
So there were a lot of conversations around, and it's not like anyone has any free time. So I hate that the question of like, what are you going to do with all your free time? And I'm like,
Right.
first of all, it's never free, and second of all, it's like unavailable. We're just trying to, I don't know. There's got to be a different way to ask that question.
I always ask people, what do you do when you're not working? It's not
Yes.
free time, but it's how you spent your time that's like
Hmm.
not spoken for through your job.
Yeah. That's what I always used to ask. My favorite question when I worked in the hospital was, what do you do for fun?
Mhm.
And it's a question that nobody gets asked when they're going through all of their assessments, right? So, like, a patient meets all the different therapies and the doctors and all that stuff. They ask them, like, you know, what's your house set up? And what do you do for work? And what do you blah, 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 all this stuff, right? And I'm like, what
Yep.
do you do for fun? I can't tell you. I can tell you probably on less than two hands the number of times people just rolled off an answer to that.
Yeah.
Almost every person is like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
people get into that. I spent a lot of time working in inpatient rehab, so people had been asked the questions I was asking them like 15 times.
Right.
And so you go through and they're like, can literally sit down and be like, I have 3 stairs to get into my house. I'm all on one level. I have the blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what do you do for fun? And they're like, huh?
Yeah.
Like, I'm in
You're
the
like,
hospital. I'm
"What?"
like, but you're not, yeah, like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna be forever. So, like, what do
Right.
you want to actually be able to do that's fun for you when you're not doing this right now?
Yeah. That's such a good question for rehab because,
Hmm.
yeah, what is it you want to be able to do? What level do you need to get back to physically? Like,
Right. It's like, do you want to be able to, like, no one's like, oh, I do laundry for fun, right? But like,
right.
we have to go through that process. Oh, I put on pants for fun, but like, you can't leave your house without pants on. Like, people have things to say about that. But I always like, it's like, but if I've gotten so much more information out about people and like what like makes them tick and what like where they really want to go with things based on, I mean, I'm an occupational therapist, so it is all self-directed, but I'm like, self-directed is not leaving the house. Self-directed is like, did you have a stroke and you want to play the guitar again? All right, let's figure out how to do that. I don't know
Yeah.
how to play the guitar, but like, let's
Right.
do that.
Right.
But I think that there's a lot of instances in our life when we're confronted with that. It's like a different size cogs in the wheel, and like sending your kids to kindergarten, that's a big click in
Yep.
the cog. Sending your last kid, like when you start having those lasts, and then it sort of like there might be a little bit of reprieve depending on the ages of your kids and the spread.
Mhm. Right.
But then you get into those big ones, and I feel like those ones, like sending your kids off to college, it's not, how do I adjust my time knowing that they're coming home at 3, but like, how do I adjust my time knowing that they might live in a different state?
Right. Yeah.
That's a whole, again,
Yep.
that's another, like, the cog is too big right now. Cannot conceptualize.
Yeah. You're too many clicks away from that.
Too many clicks. Happily. I want to stay all the way over here because that just sounds like scariness.
Yeah. Having adult and teenage children is amazing. Like, having little kids is great too. Little kids are cute. They're fun,
Yeah.
whatever. But having big kids and seeing them become who they are, seeing them become people, not that they're not people when they're little, but, people with
They're like fully formed.
Yeah, interests and talents and opinions, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Even when you don't like what some of those things are. It's still good.
Even when it comes with a head shaking, oh my gosh, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Situation. Yeah. But I love that what you're offering is a space for people to say, okay, I just went through this, because I think our tendency as, I don't know, maybe humans and how the world moves so quickly and stuff like that, is to be like, point of stress, feelings of overwhelming and immense sadness, feelings of relief, of joy, of all of those things. Let's just skip to the next step. And you're offering a space for people to say, let's just stop.
Yeah.
Go from there.
We talked about that at my last rest retreat, about how even as we set goals for ourselves, as soon as we reach them, we set the next one. We don't even take 5 minutes to enjoy, like, this is what I've worked so hard to get to. Like, can I just be here for however long, depending on how big the goal is? Like, you could be there for a day, you could be there for a year. Like, can we just be there instead of moving on to what's next?
Yeah. We attenuate so quickly.
Yeah. That was a big topic of discussion, about celebrating where we are. And even if it's not a happy place, still being there, still talking about how we're feeling, what we're doing, and instead of like trying to push it aside or solve it or move on.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? It's like, if you just keep going and going and going, like, I think about it in the context of this fall, like, all of my kids are in a lot of different activities. And I think about, like, for one kid, they're not in a lot of activities, but there are 4 of them. So like those activities, it all stacks up pretty quickly.
Right.
And I was driving 3 of them to different activities. And I had to like drop off one here and drop off one here and drop off one here and drive back. And one of my kids in the car was like, oh my gosh, this is so stressful. And I was like, but this is the point, right? Like, the stress of getting to all of those places is mine to make sure that you guys get to all those places. But I want to be doing what I'm doing right now, although it is stressful. And I feel like I have going to need like Tommy John surgery for throwing granola bars in the backseat of my car. Not even the right surgery, but you get the point.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is the point. The point is to live in the practice and the game and all of that stuff. All of the other things that circle around that, that's me and my responsibility. So you guys don't need to do that. You just have to do your homework and make sure your bag is packed and all of that stuff. But like, oh, we've got to get to here, and oh, we've got to get to here. I'm like, that is a grown-up thing to worry about.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. And it's like, I like living in the moment. Like, even, so I think about that in the context of like, when I talk about like, oh, we have to go here and we have to go here and we have to go here, I don't want them to have that feeling of like that anxiousness around managing the time and the logistics piece. It's like, you guys have to focus on this. So I like that, even if it's a 1 hour space where you stop and think about where you are and where you want to go. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Just stopping. Like, I feel like there could be a whole like months-long episode just over and over again on stopping, because it's such a theme that I see in so many of the people that come on the show. It's like wanting to do the things that you want to do, working really hard to put them in place, whether it's personal, professional, whatever, and then being able to stop and like just revel in the view or the place that you're at.
Yeah. You know, another thing about stopping is knowing when to stop for good, which is something that I think was really hard for me most of my life. Like once I started something, it was like, that's part of my identity. This is something I've committed to. And it's like, I felt like I had to do it for the rest of my life. So knowing like, you know, this chapter in my life is done. It's time to move on from this. Or yeah, just knowing when it's time to be done with something, I think is really hard. It's hard for me. I think it's hard for a lot of people. I have one kid who it's super easy for, like he moves on from things very quickly. And at first I just didn't understand, like, you said you want to do this and you try this and this and this and you're doing all these things and like, but you don't stick with any of them. And it was only like super recently that I've kind of come to understand, like, sometimes it's okay just to try things and you don't know if you're going to like it until you try it. And so why should you have to do it forever just because you decided to try it? You know, and you never know, like something could come out of that doesn't seem related. You know, you take up piano lessons and it doesn't stick, but it unlocked something in your brain like music does that is helpful years down the road that you never even know. I feel like I'm rambling now, but there's something I'm still figuring out about all of that idea of trying things and also stopping things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think there is so much pressure to like know who we are and figure that out so quickly so that we can start living as the us that we've discovered about ourselves versus
Yeah,
you're changing your whole life and you're figuring it out, and things will work in some phase or stage of your life that don't work in others. I
right.
think about that like
Yeah.
for like kids activities. My
Mhm.
theory is they have travel sports and they sell so much swag and all of these things because they realize that kids have the attention span of fireflies. But it's like if you're always surrounded by the thing, you know, that I could go on and on about like the kids sports and things like that. But it's that idea of like I have one kid that would try one thing and be like, this isn't it. And then another
Mhm.
thing, this isn't it. And this is not all like, we're not like loading the car down with swag. And this is like, we're creating our entire identity around this. It
Right.
was, okay, let's just do piece by piece. And I think, and they eventually settled on something that I love for them.
Mm.
But if they had said in the beginning, if I had said, this is where I think that you're going to end up, I shunt their ability to go
Yeah.
on that journey themselves
Right.
of
Yeah.
like what feels good and what doesn't feel good.
Yeah. And what did you learn along the
Mm-hmm.
way? Yeah.
That's what is that? I mean, there's like 1,000 terms for parenting and all of that and all the ways that we're being told that like, you know,
Right.
you're this kind of parent, so you're
Yeah.
doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But I think that's like that allowing your kids to have that discomfort that's not danger. That's not knowing what they're doing, but like deciding this is not for me, but also being willing and open to try and go out and say, I don't know how to do this. And then do I want to keep trying at this or do I want to pivot and go to another space?
Yeah. Doing things outside your comfort zone as a kid or an adult, you know, it's super important. And I feel like it's something in our current society we really shy away from. Like, we never want to be uncomfortable. We never want to be in danger of failing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
of not being great at something. And I think that's a big problem that I don't have the answer to. But so I actually tell people at the beginning of my retreats, this retreat is for you. So you make it what you want. And if there's an activity we're doing that doesn't feel like it serves you, you don't have to do it. But at the same time, try to go outside your comfort zone. If something feels kind of weird, I would really like you to try it
Mm-hmm.
and see what happens. I had on my last retreat, I sent them all outside for half an hour and they could choose to either do a sensory exploration and write down, what they see, smell, etc. Or they could do an emotional exploration where they talked to something in nature about something that they were feeling. And someone came back and she said, I went way out of my comfort zone and I had a conversation with a grasshopper. I was like, that's amazing.
Like, that's the point.
Yeah.
Please introduce the grasshopper to the rest of the group. I think that's the whole point, is that, I mean, that's how you got into this, right? Like you said in the beginning, like, I don't know anything about this industry.
Right.
I don't know where to get started, but like, there's something about this that I love and want to do. And I'm going to approach it in a way that is learning focused and discovery focused, right? Like you didn't, you said eventually I'd like to have a space where I can do this. You weren't like, oh, I want to run retreats. I guess this is it. I want to run retreats. Therefore, I bought a retreat center and I like branded all of this stuff. And this is who I am now. I run retreats, right? You didn't do that. You said,
Right.
I'm really interested in this. I'm going to learn about these steps all along the way.
Yeah.
So that's
exactly
example. Prime example.
Yeah.
What is your hope for the future for it? Like, where is this? Like, do you want the length to grow? Do you want to sort of have more refinement around themes? Or like, what are you in sometime down the road, not your 5-year plan, but sometime down the road, what do you envision for it?
I think for this coming year, I really want to keep the frequency up so that people can find something that fits in their schedule and keep up with the different options as far as length and location for the same reason. My whole idea is that I want this to be as accessible to as many people as possible. Like, I don't want, we only do week-long retreats in Costa Rica, like that's a very limited pool of people who can do that. So I really want to just keep doing things that make it as broadly accessible as possible. So frequency, variation, price point, that's a huge thing that I'm figuring out. I don't want them to be super expensive because I don't want it to be for only people who have a ton of disposable income. I offer scholarships also. I have someone coming to my next retreat in November that's using a scholarship for the first time, which is awesome. People have been donating to that scholarship fund slowly over the last several months, and I had enough that it made a difference for her that she could come. And then I think refining and expanding on themes. I'd like to get a focus group together here soon and just figure out, like, do people want retreats that are really explicitly talking about rest, intention, stillness, and connection, and learning about that and experiencing that and figuring out how to add it into their lives? Or do they want a different theme, but those pillars just underlie the experience? Or maybe we do a mix of both. So I think that's going to be kind of my big question for the next year or so, is sort of what that looks like, how those get expressed through the retreats.
And having such a curiosity focused mindset around it is really, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never have thought of doing like, I think when I see retreat, I see like 5-day, 7-day, like maybe 3 days, but not necessarily a shorter piece. So I think that's a really cool concept. And I mean, having the Zoom option. So maybe people say like, okay, I can get together for an hour.
Right. And that's the idea, is like, if people are kind of like, if they've never done retreats, they're not really sure what this is about. If just the idea of a retreat in general is outside of their comfort zone, asking them to come for 3 days is like a huge ask.
Yeah.
So if they can come for an hour or 3 hours and kind of feel, oh, okay, I kind of get what this is. Okay, I feel like this is helping me, or, I like it for whatever reason. Okay, maybe I'll try something a little longer and kind of work their way up to it. And maybe some people will never do a longer one because, for lots of reasons, they can't take that much time away from their family. They don't like sleeping outside of their house, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think I will always keep shorter options, even as this grows, so they can find what fits for them.
I like it. Well, let everybody know where they can find you and they can find Be.Retreats and they can learn all about the packages. Please and thank you.
Yeah. My website is beretreats.co. So beretreats.co. And then I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn. You can find all those linked from the footer of the website. And I would say sign up for my newsletter on the website. I send a newsletter weekly that has things that I don't post anywhere else. So that's kind of if you want everything, all the information, that's the best place to get it. And, now that we're winding down, I don't have a ton of retreats open on my website because I'm winding down for the season. So that will also be a good way to know once kind of the new slate for 2026 is ready.
Smart. I like that. Yeah, you've got like a pause in there too. You've got some rest. You built rest into your own business plan.
I do build my own rest in. I had a day in September that I literally put on the calendar. Rest day, don't plan anything. I think it was 2 weeks before the retreat that I was running. So, that I would go into it rested and ready to help the people there and, not go into it all stressed out.
Yeah, smart. So smart. Well, I will put everything in the show notes so people can find you. That's really cool. I love that you're, that you've got this going and growing and that you're building something that feels aligned and really intentional. So thank you for sharing today.
Thank you.